Moving on, we're still dealing with note entry. We're yet to encounter Hyperscribe. So we have looked at the simple entry tool, we have looked at the speedy entry tool, and now we're looking at the Hyperscribe tool. Of course, when you select the tool, there is the menu that comes. This menu, it identifies a beat source. Now, what Hyperscribe is that it gets based on quantization settings, and if you would have read up the notes or any of the chapters that has to deal with quantization, or in one of my presentations you would have come across the whole issue of quantization. Granted, you may not understand all the ramifications of it, but you don't have to understand everything in order to use it. So with the quantization settings, you have to have a source from which Final is going to calculate what a beat is, how many milliseconds or EDU measurement units of time that is going to be allotted and to be considered as one beat, because everything that is going to be written or displayed on our staff here will be done according to that setting. So the setting here is a playback and or click. So there's going to be a click that we will have to follow. We could also have the option of setting in a tap, which you can do so with a standard sustain pedal. Just tap it foot there, right? Or you could use the tap to be the MIDI note 60, which ends up to be C4. You could listen for the tap, pom, 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 stuff like that. You decide how many EDUs would go to that. You can also select another event, another MIDI event, and use that as your source. Right? I'm not going to be using the tap in play. Right? This, for my purposes, I'll just use the built-in playback click. You can also have an external MIDI synchronizer, right? So you could have maybe a MIDI man or a device. You could have a synchronization port, which most of these are devices that would, in a daisy chain, connect several keyboards to the computer. And when you're doing stuff like that, you could typically be writing 3-4 channels at once. However, you would have to synchronize the streaming of the data to one beat, one source, alright? And even in playback, different keyboards have different manufacturer settings, and you may need a device to be the master to feed what the sync is to each keyboard and for them to calibrate themselves to that master sync. So this deals with that whole issue of how much time is allotted for one beat, right? Making it simple, we're just using the playback and click, and you can set the tempo. You can also listen for the tempo. Right, so I'm clicking slowly so you see what the tempo is if I click. Alright, so as well as you can just decide what tempo you want to play at, if you want to use like 7/6. Alright, so we can use that tempo and select what the beat is. The beat right now is a quarter note. Alright, we can ask it to record it immediately. I normally like to ask for a click and count off. Right? My click and count off gives me 2 measures, and my source is finale click. Just going with that. Right? And I want the click to be on while I'm recording, you know, right? So that I can hear and adjust my playing accordingly. So this is the typical setting that I use. Well, for the application that I'm doing, which is really just to scribing things, you know, that's what is needed. Based on your application of the various techniques, you may decide or may need or require other settings. Alright, so we've got done with setting the beat source. Let's look at the record mode. You can record onto one staff, and there you hear the clip going, and it's going at the specific time that we had set. Or you could do it in split staff. When you're doing it in split staff, there has to be a note. By default, the split point is 60, which is C4 middle C, right? If I have 60, right? You can find the finale numberings for all the key by just pressing them. Alright, so 21 is the low A that we have in our 88 keys, and 108 is the highest on an 88 keyboard. The numbering range that finale takes is from 0 to 127. Alright, so 88 keyboard is from 21 to 108. I want my split point. Let's put it at B flat 58. That's what I had at before. Alright. Now what the fixed split point does is whatever you play will be either written on this treble clef or on the bass clef. So what's above that point goes on the treble clef. What's below that point goes on the bass clef. Alright? And I think that point actually is on the treble clef. I'm not sure about that. You could experiment and see for yourself. Alright? So we can do split into 2 staffs. The multi-track recording is what I hinted to when I was saying that you could connect several keyboards in a daisy chain and assign a keyboard to a particular staff or instrument or 2, you know, because piano would take 2 staffs, you know, so you could have a whole band come in, set them up in a daisy chain, set MIDI synchronizer to control the master timing for all the internal clocks from all the keyboards. Have one click setting. You could feed that through a speaker so all the musicians can hear, and persons just start playing and play according to the timing and according to the quantization settings as best as possible, and immediately you would have an arrangement done. You're ready to publish your music. Alright, so I've just changed it back to split into 2 staffs. Now the options that we have for the Hyperscribe, I always want to have my screen refreshed. You do not necessarily have to, but it psychologically it helps to guide me. I'm not sure, you know, of how much value is that, but right. You can instruct it to tie across bar lines. Now if this isn't selected and you hold a note that goes beyond the duration that will be fitted in a bar, then it would write the number of beats that pertain to that bar and no more. So if you say that the last note of your piece really is, we're in 4/4, but it's 8 beats. You press the note and you keep it for your 8 beats. In that situation, you'll only see 4 beats of the note. the other 4 would not be written because it would not tie it. So I would want the tie across bar line option to be there. I don't necessarily want the Hyperscribe dialog to be there, but I can just show you what that would be. Right, so giving the note value and whatever it is that you're writing in, it shows you where each measure, how much data is going. So now you're ready to go. Right, so it would have been 2 measures that would have gone by and stuff like that. All of that fancy stuff, technically not needed for my everyday purpose. Maybe you may need it. So I usually don't show Hyperscribe dialog. Alright. Now, depending on the mode that you're in, you may have to receive data on all channels based on how many channels that the data will be coming in. But at this moment we're just playing in piano, keeping it really simple. So only need 1 channel. Alright, so I'm specifying that. If you had set up on the daisy chain, and you would have to specify which keyboard is in which channel, which instrument, and then you would specify the amount of channels that you're using, and all channels would mean 16 channels, which is the default that MIDI comes with. Alright, let's go to quantization setting. This is what's important. Now you can select what your smallest note value will be, and the smaller your note values are based on what it is that you are going to be scribing. It tends to be the crazier things may get, or the more sensitive things will get. Alright, so if you know you're doing a piece that doesn't require a high sensitivity, like I'm looking at a piece here, and my smallest note value, okay, I have some 16 notes there, it's a 16th note. So I will select that. I do not need it to be more sensitive than that. Now it's showing here where the sensitivity of how you want the rhythms to be. No tuplets. Alright, so if you play ta-ta-tam, you will get ta-tam. No tuplets, so nothing in 2s. Alright, depending on what you're doing, that may be useful. Mixed rhythms. So you could, this is actually like the most sensitive for me, because if you play something that feels close to a triplet, it will write the triplet or tie it through the triplet or whatever. This is really quite sensitive. You can also choose space notes evenly in beat. However, the sensitivity of how you play, you have to really be direct at what you do with this setting. Because with this setting, you may give an ictus tam tadam, and if it is not dead on, it may quantize it to be tam pam pam. Right? So based on, you have to try out these different sensitivity settings to see, based on the application that you're using it for and based on your keyboard skills, to get just what you want. Alright, now there are some additional settings, such as if you wanted to include the double voicing. Right now our sensitivity level is at the 30-second notes. Alright, so it will hear down to that. It's not just at the 16th note, it's at the 30-second. So if it is that we want it just to be sensitive to 256 EDUs, then once that is the smallest note that we're going for, then let the sensitivity level be there. Alright, I do not want it to include voice too, but just as how we could have kept a note for the duration of 2 beats, and in the same staff play 2 or 3 notes within that 2-beat period of different beat patterns, alright, and have them layer in the same layer, voicing above each other. You could do that as well, but again, your touch has to be precise to give it the correct instruction so that it could actually quantize that. Now, how to handle very short notes. Right now, I'm asking it to convert to real notes, and I'll let it stay at that. If you have it at remove grace notes, then if it is that you really indicated a crush, you will not get that. Alright? So convert to real notes is the setting that I have, that even if it's written there, I could go back in and correct it. Alright? So all of these things are different instructions that we call quantization settings, so that it will know from the performance information coming in MIDI what to ignore, what things to, like, put in parameters around it so that the display data can be more intelligible. Alright, so I think everything in our options here are ready to go, and I've always left it on continuous data. You do not want it to be discrete, you want it to be continuous. Alright, so I'm not sure how I'll do with this one. I'll just record on one staff for the moment. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's just stop there, right? Good. So what I played, it has quantized it. So realize how the triplets came in. I actually had 16 notes. I would not have played it in a way that, based on the quantization settings, would have recognized it as 16 notes. So when it is that notes are below the sensitivity level, it would actually cluster them together. Alright, so let's change something in our settings here. We're going to use mixed rhythms now. Okay, see what that 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's stop right here. Good. Precisely, we got our good. We got our 16 notes. But it did do mixed rhythms. So where it is that my timing was a bit off, and not exactly 1 and 2 and, I got a triplet, 1 pat. Right, so that is and 2 and pam padam. Right, so that's what I end up getting. Pam pam padam. Right, so you will get rhythms like this. Alright, where the notes would have been too fast, based on the sensitivity level, we have it at second 32nd note, so it clumped the other note onto the previous one and worked out the dotted. We would now go through and just basically respell the notes to what it is that we would have desired it to be. Taking out the flats and putting in the sharp, so it's now looking pretty much like what I would have intended in a sense. Right. We would just delete out the extra notes that you would not have need of. Right? So most times in using Hyperscribe method of putting in notes, there are some skills that are required, such as excellent keyboard playing skills. Let's see how this works. Right, take out one. Right, good. And being able to use the other methods as well to actually correct the music, having the music look pretty much what it is that we would want it to look like. Alright, so I hope that you would have had a good experience just going through this video. Not really claiming to be an expert user of the Hyperscribe, but from my experience, if you can slow down your timing, practice your music, and actually play it in, and play it in as accurate, not as how you would perform it, but as how you would want it to be written. Right? So it's not going to recognize your bar and all of those things. No. Play it metronomically accurate. Based on the quantization settings, you would get that which you would desire to have. Alright? So this would bring us to the end of the three main tools that are used in note entry, and this is the part of using the software that is most mechanical. This is the part of using the software that takes practice, takes time, but it's also very exciting because as soon as we can get our pitches in, guess what? You can hit the play button. I mean, I do not have anything sensible here, but you could essentially right here, music being performed, right? And whatever that is, good. So we will be looking at more of the tools, but for the interim, please practice these tools, get in as many notes as possible, and whatever exercises or requirements that I would request of you online in our online course. At least practice this skill set so that you won't find at least getting in the basic notes that challenging. Alright? Because after getting in the notes, that's the first thing. A lot of other stuff are yet to come. So please do enjoy finale. See you in our next video.